Welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. And despair. Oh, how nice to see you despair. Because that's how it feels after another season ends for the men's basketball team. Texas Tech, the Texas basketball team went all the way to the Elite Eight. Tied the second furthest that our basketball program has ever gone in our history. Of course, only 2019 did we go further. And really put on a show. Really did an incredible job this season. And we got an opportunity to really reflect on it. And through reflection, I think everybody has been satisfied with the result. But the game itself sucked. I don't know how else to say it. It just sucked. And so to talk about the game as well as additional reflection, we got the People's Champ himself, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
It's that time of year, everybody. 'Tis the season to have all your hopes and dreams crushed at the worst possible time available. So sting of defeat, and that's pretty much it. And you know what sucks about this time of year for it to happen is that it happens in football, and it's like, you know what? We got basketball coming. Basketball, let's go. With this, you have to sit with this through what's known as the off season, which is the worst time of the year if you don't win it all, because you have to sit going, man, you know what would have been great? If that guy didn't hit off 3 threes in succession to crush our dreams.
Well, for the past decade when this happens, we're like, oh, well, we got baseball. We can just seamlessly go into baseball. Can't do that this year. We can't do softball, though. I mean, and we'll have episodes talking about softball here. You can't. So that's the pivot. The pivot. We're no longer pivoting to baseball. Don't worry about baseball. We're pivoting to softball. They're good again. So that's fantastic. But yeah, you are right though. It's that, the solace of, we have basketball is now gone. So let's talk about it a little bit. Last time we were here was before. One thing we got a chance to talk about was before the Arkansas game, and how we were going to be able to beat Arkansas. And boy, howdy, did I not think we were going to win that game for most of it. That game against Arkansas, they outplayed us for a good 35 minutes of that game. Right? They looked like the better team for 35 minutes of that game. I tweeted it out how I was getting NC State vibe because it just seemed like nothing we did in that game was working. It seemed like nothing we could do defensively was stopping them. They were hitting all their shots. Everything was working on their end. And it just seemed like for a good 35 minutes of that game that we had no chance to win that game whatsoever. What say you, Jeremy?
Yeah, just something we had talked about early was Arkansas's size and how that was just kind of a disaster for Texas Tech. Nothing unfamiliar because we played big teams all season. But with the momentum that Arkansas had, it was something to be worried about. And they really made it feel like they were bigger. And a lot of trips down there, just blocking out JT, blocking out Darius, like just not giving us any chance. It felt like for a very long time that you just couldn't get anything going inside. It was like you are going to have to beat this team from beyond the arc if you want a chance to do this. Which
and those shots weren't falling.
Those shots weren't falling either. So it was like, well, this game's over. Unfortunately, it's over.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like. I will say JT kept us in the game for most of it, right? Like he, at the very least, found the mismatch against Carter Knox, and Carter Knox got him some jabs in, right? Got a block. Or got a steal in there, was able to kind of deflect the ball a little bit. But most of the time, JT said, come here, Knox, and backed him down and got a nice little right-hand hook. Props to Calipari for trying to shift JT to his left side, where one thing I will say, so when commentators notice something, that's all they talk about, and it's really annoying, right? So they found out about the whole JT left-hand thing. About the whole first half is almost over by the time they found out about it. Honestly, it's something that Arkansas tried to do from the opening tip. From the opening tip, they were trying to push him to his left side. It just wasn't working early on. And then finally they were able to do it, to get it there. And then once they figured it out, they're like, they keep pushing to his left side. Mind you, JT is not inept at using his left hand, right? It's just, instead of him being virtually automatic with his right hand, he's just more probable, more like he might miss with his left, right? But it's every single miss, it was like, that's because he's using his left hand. Mind you, he still shot 60% from the field. So it's not like he just didn't have a good game with right or left. But I think he was able to find those mismatches against Knox. Brazil, who's a little bit better, kind of had to work his way around. And that's when, like you were mentioning, he was getting kind of beat up there. Brazil's a big boy. So he was kind of getting beat up there by Brazil. But JT was really the only one keeping us into this game because D5 was struggling from the field. Christian Anderson was struggling from the field. And we didn't have Chance McMillan in this game, right? Chance McMillan's just like in tears saying that, like, this was a game. I'm watching this game, and I'm like, God, if there was ever a game where we could really use a shot maker and a shot creator, this is an extra one. This is it. But God, do we miss Chance McMillan? And it felt like that for a good 15 minutes.
Just brutal half. Brutal, like you said, 35 minutes basically. 35 minutes, yeah. Brutal most of the game. And it was one of those that I said, you know, I was like, please let it seem like we're gonna fight. Because for the first half, especially the first half, I was like, we have nothing in us. We do not want to win this game. Like, nobody, I was tweeting, I was like, I don't think anybody wants to win this game. It took Kevin Overton kind of coming in for a little bit and like, hey guys, let's come in and do something. Switching it up and getting some buckets. It was like, okay, well, seems like Kevin Overton's the only guy who wants to do anything. Topham was staying consistent inside, finally finding that mismatch. Darian Williams, God bless him for this first, again, 35 minutes, just shooting to shoot. And some of the shots were the good looks.
But he took 26 shots.
Yes.
And mind you, up until those last 5 minutes of regulation, they were not going in.
That's right. And we'll talk about the last 5 minutes. But, I mean, just so uncharacteristic. And I thought in my mind, because another big storyline of this one was Chance McMillan ready to suit up against Arkansas, right? Until the day of. I mean, even in that morning, he was listed on ready to go. It wasn't until they tried to go through warm-ups that he basically went up to Coach McCaslin and said, can't do it. And Coach McCaslin honored that and all right, and then we all got the same notification. Chance McMillan not playing against Arkansas. And that was like, for a lot of people, they went, well, there goes our hopes and dreams. Like, it was that moment of like, now we have nobody.
One thing I do want to say about that, because I saw a lot of people questioning him as a person. Let me tell you something. And if this was a random game in January, maybe, right? Maybe you take precautions. Maybe you're like, I don't feel like playing today. This is a Sweet 16. I don't even think Ben Simmons is over here taking games off in the Sweet 16 because he doesn't feel like it or doesn't. If he is going through warmups, but here's the thing: if you're oblique, and oblique is not an injury you play with. If your oblique is killing you in warmups, how do you expect to play a 40-minute game? Elijah Hawkins played all 45 minutes of this game.
Another full game for Elijah Hawkins.
Yeah. So if you're Chance McMillan, and it's not like Chance McMillan only plays 20 minutes. If he's in the game, he's going to play 40 minutes in this game. So if you're over here struggling in warmups, I can't do it. This is Sweet 16, but I can't do it. My career, right, might end here. And you mean to tell me that this guy who's looking at it and saying my career might end here it's because he's not tough? Hey, get out of here. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. He tried it. He wasn't able to go. And it is what it is. But never once did it cross my mind of, I guess this guy's just not tough. That's just stupidly ridiculous.
It's so stupid. Very short-sighted.
So I do also want to talk about one other player. And I haven't mentioned him here for a reason. Let's talk about the discourse around Elijah Hawkins a little bit.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Devin Cambridge, but okay.
I don't. We've already given him too much attention.
I was the problem. I was the problem. Yeah, buddy, get the hell out of here.
Lord Jesus.
And you think, just a quick annotation, it's crazy to think one more layer on top of how good Coach McCaslin is that he was playing even one man down of a typical NCAA roster the whole season. Yeah, we got that far.
Yeah, absolutely. But now I was going to talk about like Elijah Hawkins, right? So I think I always am curious to see what people tweet when it comes to certain players, certain events, and you can always tell people that play basketball or know basketball or really like love the game versus fans of the team, right? Because I think those are two different things. So when you're a fan of Tech, you're just a fan of Tech. It doesn't matter if we're meat judging, you're going to be out there cheering. Golf, tennis, you're out there cheering. You're a beloved fan of Tech, right? And then there are people like me who are a fan of Tech, but I'm an insane person that was watching the McDonald's high school All-American game, right? I was over here watching the first round of the women's college basketball game, right? Like I will or in the tournament. Actually, I was watching the WBIT and it wasn't even Tech playing. Tech had already finished their game and the next game was on. And I was like, all right, let's keep watching. All right, like I'm insane. And so I'm gonna watch basketball because I love basketball. And so when I watch, and I bring all this up because when I watch Elijah Hawkins, people that play basketball and watch basketball look at Elijah Hawkins and say, buddy, you probably should stop shooting, but you do everything else fantastically. Right? Like let's be real, he should stop shooting. Like another three, Elijah, please stop it. But I saw some people saying, oh man, you got to get him out of there. Oh man, let me tell you something. Elijah Hawkins defensively now on DJ Wagner, a guy that he's so much bigger than. Elijah Hawkins struggled offensively because he's 5'10" in a sea of giants. Yeah. Defensively, though, he had DJ Wagner in the tear dome, right? DJ Wagner really struggled in this game. You know who didn't struggle in this game? John L. Davis, because Elijah Hawkins wasn't guarding him. Now, John L. Davis kind of killed us, right? John L. Davis tried a couple mismatches against Elijah Hawkins, was like, a little Mighty Mass can defend a little bit. Let me see what these other guys have, right? Christian Anderson, who sometimes struggles on defense. Kerwin Walton, who sometimes struggles on defense, right? They're not as annoying as this Elijah Hawkins guy. So as much as I want Elijah Hawkins to just stop, as much as I want Elijah Hawkins to just stop shooting, he's great at everything else. So yeah, no, it's so Elijah Hawkins' defense was incredible. I think there were some moments in this game where he just did the right thing. But I think I will say this about Hawkins though. Early on, Hawkins is one of the leaders, if not the leader in the Big 12 when it comes to assist to turnover ratio. He had 3 turnovers in the first 5 minutes. And that's when I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Bad sign. I think the rest of the game, outside of his shooting, he actually did play pretty decently, despite that all the Tech Nation wanted him to leave the game because they don't realize shooting's not everything. But I think he still did as good a job as he could of facilitating. I think he played incredible defense on DJ Wagner and on John L. Davis whenever he was on him. But, Elijah, sometimes you ain't got to shoot it all the time.
That's right, man. And, if you on the one hand, you want to praise Coach McCaslin for being like the coach for Texas Tech, you can't likewise say he's keeping a guy in for literally the entire game if that athlete is not performing. Like, he's not going to keep Elijah Hawkins in there if he's like, yeah, the shooting's not great. And you saw him a couple times look at Elijah and go, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to get that shot there? But the value that he brought to the team, especially defensively, man, it is understated. Like, people will not talk enough about Elijah Hawkins' defensive prowess on this season. Guarded guys like Caleb Love, guarded guys like LJ Cryer, guarded guys like John L. Davis. I mean, he was constantly undersized against his competition and outperformed. And I think that's huge. Yeah, there's a lot of shots that I wish he didn't take throughout the season, especially in this Arkansas game. But I, at the same time, can't say I can't say stop shooting. Because another thing, on the other hand, is that there are games this season where he shot pretty well. And so, like, if our team is not getting anything going, somebody's got to step up, and it's going to have to cut. Darian Williams is the perfect example, especially in this game, that you just have to continue to shoot and trust in yourself. And it's something that D5 mentioned in the post-game presser is like, Coach McCaslin tells them all the time, look, it's you, like, shoot it. Like, I'm trusting you guys to take the shots, and like, everybody's trusting each other to do it. So if Elijah Hawkins still shooting, for me, I feel that Elijah felt like he had a good chance.
So let's talk about the last 4 minutes and 43 seconds, shall we? So at this point, John L. Davis makes another layup. Arkansas is up 13. They have a 97.9% chance of winning this game, according to ESPN analytics. And all is lost. I mean, I think at this point, that's not the dagger, but it's pretty dang close to it. I mean, everything feels distraught. And then what happens is from that moment, little by little, right? We have a Christian Anderson. That Christian Anderson 3-point shot starts it all.
Yeah.
Down 13, Christian Anderson. And the thing about it is that at the time, I think we'd only made 1 3-pointer the entire game up to that point. Christian Anderson makes that 3. And it's almost like us as an entire Red Raider nation breathes a sigh of relief of, thank God, 1 went in. Like, oh my God. And I say Red Raider Nation, everybody on the bench and on the team wearing white jerseys had to be thinking the same thing too. Like, 1 went in. Like, that's all we needed to see. 1 would go in. Right after that, you get a defensive stop, and then Darren Williams makes a layup. Okay. Just like that, a minute later, we're down 8, right? Still not great. Arkansas still looks in control, but down 8, it's single digits at least, okay. And then Darren Williams makes another shot at the basket, right? Nice little, also picking on Knox again. And getting to the basket. Okay, well, Darren Williams trying to get his game going. It's only a 6-point lead now. Wow, that's crazy. But Arkansas still has an 88% chance of winning this game. There's a little over 2 minutes to go, but we're right in it. Shockingly enough, 2-possession game, right? And then Christian Anderson, another 3-point shot. And you're like, wait, whoa. 2 minutes to go. It's a 3-point game. Oh my God, it's a 3-point game. Jeremy, it's a 3-point game with 2 minutes to go. And just like that, it happens. All right, Arkansas, Knox makes a 3 to say, wait, or chill out, Red Raiders. No, he ain't like that. But then what happens? Christian Anderson knocks another one. It's a 1-possession game again with a minute to go. And just like that, you go back and forth. And Jeremy, they know who to go to. Christian Anderson's made 3 threes up at this point in the last couple minutes. That's the guy that's going to take the shot. They make sure to bump up on him. Christian Anderson's trying to do his patented in and out step back that him and Chance love to do so much, right? He's not able to do it. It's funny thing about the final play, Jeremy, is because he passes to Darren Williams to pass back to him. That's what it was. He says, "Here, D5, you get the ball now. Pass it back to me, and maybe I can like regroup in a way to get the shot off." And Darren Williams does one of those. No. Yes. 3-point shots. Absolutely incredible. Darren Williams had no business shooting that shot. It reminded me of Patrick Ewing's, like, who told you to take that shot type of shot. Absolute incredible defense. I think it was by Idu. I think it's who was defending him at the moment. He's either Idu or Knox, can't remember. But it was really good defense. Hand right up there. Almost, it looked like he almost got a block, so much so that Williams had to like kind of have one of those bleacher shots that hit the roof of the building and make its way in. High arc, but shockingly it goes in, and then Darren Williams acts like, yeah, that's what he meant to do the whole time. It was an incredible shot.
I think it was planned. I think it was planned. I'm on the opposite side of that because I think back earlier this season. I cannot remember the team. Man, let me look at the schedule real quick, see if I can kind of jog my memory. It was pretty late in the season. It might have been at TCU, or Iowa State. It might have been TCU or Iowa. One of those that we lost, but we could have either won or tied because Darian Williams took the last shot and won. Iowa State. Darian Williams got the ball at the top of the key, took the shot, missed. Right. But Coach McCaslin gave Darian Williams the ball because he knew Darian Williams was capable of making that shot. So whenever the build up to that moment for me was Christian Anderson, he's cooking, and Arkansas knows it, so they're going to go to Christian Anderson. So in my mind, if I'm Coach Linden, I think if Anderson's open, hey, take the shot. But they're not going to look at Williams because he is not good from 3 in their minds. Right. Although, and
they would have been right.
They would have been right. And so I think the coaches gave them an opportunity to say Anderson 1, Williams the second option. Yeah. And so maybe Anderson thought, I just don't think there was enough time for Anderson to dish it off and get it back and take the shot. I can't remember. The shot clock was really close, but it was just I felt like that was a really redemptive moment for Darian, especially because something we didn't mention, before Christian Anderson hit that momentous three to kind of change the course, what happened? Darren Williams got bullied, just drove past and dunked on, basically, good layup. And the whole Arkansas bench was making fun of Darian Williams because he was too small. You're too small.
Yeah.
Too small.
Very good point. So this actually happened even before that first Christian Anderson three, right? With about 5 or 6 minutes left to go to the game. That did happen. It was Knox, right? Knox and Williams going at each other the entire game. And Knox did a nice little up and under move, go around him and dunk on him. And the entire Arkansas bench called him too small. Did the gesture that he's too little, did the, right on his head, yelled it. He is too little. He is too small. And I remember sitting out at the time, we're down 13, down double digits.
Yeah.
So so at the time, I'm like, I see it, put it in my bank, but yeah, you can't really say nothing. But absolute huge redemption story. That
we didn't miss after that.
If y'all see my tweets, you could tell I got really hyped at the end of this game based off of that one. So I mean, it did bring us into overtime, and overtime was more of a back and forth contest, right? It wasn't one team than the next team. I mean, both teams really trying to throw right hooks, right? Elijah Hawkins finally makes a 3-point shot.
That's right.
Honestly, it was
that's
one
when
of
I
those
knew
shots.
we were going to win.
So it was also one of those shots, right, where Anderson passes it out to him, and you're as wide open as humanly possible.
Yeah,
it's one of those shots like did not make you can't. At all. They were like, listen, and I'm part of me was like, so there were so many other times in the game where I'm like, Elijah, pass. That was one where I was like, dude, if you can't make this shot, like,
that's right,
bro.
That's right.
And it was almost like, I don't know if you saw him walk with the shot as the ball was in the air.
Where he did not believe it.
He willed the shot in, like, God, please. Yes.
Go. Yeah, he that thing in.
And so, to your point, when that shot went in, I was like, destiny. And sure enough, that destiny, once again, talking about redemption, tie game, take it to the cup, D5, and Darren Williams with a nice move right there. Personally, I thought Arkansas was dumb for not doubling him in the post. Leaving their guy on the island. Like, that's I leave Elijah Hawkins open instead. Like, don't leaving Darren Williams on an island where he's been cooking, especially the last 10 minutes of that game. Like, what are y'all doing there? I think that was a very foolish decision by Calipari and team not to do so, especially since up to that point, I mean, that Arkansas coaching staff had been cooking. So, but either way, it doesn't matter. Darren Williams cooked more, 3-point shot, game-winning shot at the end of overtime. Texas Tech wins 85-83, the second biggest comeback in NCAA tournament history. Down 13 with 4 minutes and 43 seconds to go. Absolutely incredible. Top 3 game in Texas Tech program history, if you ask me. Just an absolute incredible showing, incredible game. I don't remember the last time I've been that hype watching a basketball game. Maybe the 2019 Final Four game, national semifinal. That's the only game I can remember being more hyped for. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, just a really fun game that for most of it was not fun, but the last 5+ minute plus overtime, last 10 minutes basically, just it was the meme where the guy's in the chair leaning back and then he's leaning forward. Like, that was me. It's like, man, gonna have to talk about this on the pod. Oh, we're gonna talk about this on the pod. John Calipari, but two big things. John Calipari did not deviate from what we talked about, that he is very consistent and that he doesn't like to adapt his game. Yeah. So failed towards the end, nothing changed for Arkansas. Number 2, John Calipari is actually not very good in overtime. Not a lot of good wins in his belt in games in overtime during the tournament. So, and you could see, I think, from that first, and I'm saying it's so stupid that they do like coach interviews during the game, but in that first interview with Calipari, I mean, he's smiling, he's joking, he's having a good time, which, like, hey, whatever. Like, if you're passionate, I don't care. But starkly different to whenever we were in the middle of our run, and his face was just lost all soul. He was just so lost on what was happening that his team was imploding, it felt like. But the reality was we just came alive and we just started punching back when I'm sure in his mind it was cruise control time. But Not today, buddy. Not
Yeah.
today.
Not today at all. It's to your point. Like that lack of adjustments is killer, and they just try to will his team to victory and wasn't able to do it. So funny enough, we kind of felt the exact opposite of that the very next game, right? So Texas Tech did get an opportunity to play Florida, the number 1 seed in the bracket, and funny enough, the jokes that were going around was we were the Cinderella, right? St. John's was the only 2 seed that didn't make the Elite Eight. Or the only 1 or 2 seed that didn't make the Elite Eight. Kind of goes to what I was saying before of that I was under the belief that Texas Tech should have gotten St. John's 2 seed. So if you ask me, the 8 best teams in college basketball this year made the Elite Eight. So we were up on Florida. And let me tell you something. The 1 seeds beat up on the lower seeds in the Elite Eight, right? Houston, Auburn, and Duke beat their teams like they stole something. Florida, however, did not. Florida was in a dogfight in their games, and for that first half was pretty back and forth. We started opening up a can of whoop ass in the second half, and it was all good just a week ago. With about 6 minutes and 38 seconds to go, Texas Tech had a 92% win probability, baby. We were up 10. Right, there was even a moment we were up 10 with 6 minutes and 18 seconds ago. We had a 92.3% win probability, 71-61. And unfortunately, same thing happened. We just let it implode. All of a sudden, we are looking scared. It was a combination of 2 things, right? I think it was a combination of not even shots not falling, but I think we played way too careful with the last 6 minutes of this game. Right, we didn't play the way we had been playing. We were kind of taking it to Florida. We were playing within the flow of the game. Last 6 minutes of the game, it was like we're up 10. It's like we talk about all the time in football when you're playing not to lose, and that's what it felt like for Texas Tech in the last 6 minutes. It was where we slowed. We had been playing our fairly fast-paced game with Florida. Last 6 minutes, we tried to slow it down. Right, Hawkins and Anderson tried to slow it down. Also, Chance McMillan played in this game. Played 26 minutes in this game, and actually had a pretty decent game considering, but. It really felt like, hey, McMillan's a good example. Like, hey, guys, let's slow it down. We're in this game. We can't believe we're in this game, but we're here. Let's slow it all down. And Florida kind of took advantage. I think it took us out of our rhythm. And then Walter Clayton Jr. turned into Steph Curry. That was the other piece of it. He couldn't miss. Let me tell you something. That shot where he has the ball ahead of the free throw, they were up 1 at this point. They'd already completed their comeback. They're up 1. But it's still very much in both teams' hands. Mm-hmm. But the ball comes off. He gets the rebound. He's in front of the free throw line. And he runs backwards, turns around, and shoots it. And I literally said the words, "Ain't no way in hell." Oh, God.
Yeah. That was a tough finish, that one.
Honestly, when that shot went in, I was like, that is honestly when I accepted the fact that that's game. And it wasn't game. Like it wasn't. We were down 4 with a little less than a minute to go. It's not game, but buddy,
he had
shot like that.
He had missed 5 threes prior to hitting those triple back to back. 5. It was a Darren Williams moment. It was like, this guy sucks. He's not going to make it. Clunk. Oh shoot! And I'll tell you what frustrated me. The only piece of this that frustrated me was. Well, I guess playing not to lose is always a loser mentality. Honestly, it's kind of what Arkansas did. But if you're going to play at their pace or you're trying to slow it down, one way you can slow it down, let them go inside. Let them go inside and get the 2, slow down the pace of play, right? Don't give up the 3 because if they took 3 2-pointers instead of 3 3-pointers, this is a whole different game, right? This isn't the same kind of momentous whatever, but and that changes up kind of like your pedagogy here. But I think that they needed those shots. They needed those shots in order to get this game where they wanted it to be. And so I think that we kind of failed defensively, not recognizing that. And that's, again, there's nothing to say. There's so many things that by themselves don't change the game. Together, it's like, okay, this was kind of a recipe. One, officiating, and I not big on like going after the officiants, but like there's a huge free throw disparity in this game, and you could talk about that day and night. It whatever. The way that we handled the last 5 minutes defensively, but also the way that we handled the last 5 minutes offensively, right? If Florida's shooting out of their mind, why did we stop shooting out of our mind? Like, what changed? Like, how do we kind of go dry for so long to allow them to get back in? So I think that there was just a number of things that came together at the wrong time, the end of the game, that swung everything Florida's way. Where at the end, it's like now we're having to watch them just take free throws. Again, another thing, free throws.
Yeah, free throws. I was just about to get to that. Free throws. So I will say this: a couple things you said there. I'm going to push back on the getting them off the 3-point line. I think some of those shots for Walter Clayton. I mean, ain't nothing you can do. Like like it's easier said than done to try to run them off.
It's a retrospect commentary, but yeah.
And so, but I will say the free throw disparity, right? So. I don't think that always tells a story of good or bad refereeing, right? A lot of times it tells, if anything, most of the time when there's a disparity like that, it tells, in my opinion, it tells more a story of the style of play, right?
Yeah.
Outside of Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin, everybody else on this team, or no, sorry, not Elijah Martin. Outside of Walter Clayton and Thomas Hall, everybody else on this team was driving the lane, right? They were driving the lane. They were getting rebounds, which we were funny enough, we were undersized against Arkansas, but we out-rebounded them. This game, we were struggling with the rebounds, right? And so they were getting rebounds, and we were fouling them on their rebounds, and a lot of that was happening, right? So there's that aspect. We had a few guys that were in foul trouble just making bad fouls. Elijah Hawkins was making a lot of bad perimeter fouls, stuff like that. So I think that's one thing that tells that. I will say this, right? The bigger story when I look at the free throws, Florida had 27 free throw attempts. And that's a lot. And I'm not saying officiating was perfect because they weren't. There were a lot of missed calls. But Darren Williams never gets calls. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he pisses in the referees' cereals. But he didn't get it in Arkansas. He didn't get it against Florida. He never gets calls, just period. He can get hacked all day. He won't get a call. Toppin doesn't really get calls either. But Williams almost never. It's kind of crazy. But my main point is that of the 27 free throws Florida shot, they made 25.
Yeah.
Of the 13 free throws Texas Tech shot, we made 7. Right? At the end of the game, both teams went to the line for a 1-and-1 twice.
Correct.
Florida went 4 for 4. Tech went 0 for 2. And honestly, that was the difference between winning and losing. If we make our free throws, especially those 1-on-1s at the end of the game, score's flipped. Florida needs a little bit more. And I'm talking about the timing of it. It's not just simple as the numbers and stuff like that. The scores flip. Florida needs a little bit. They need another 1 or 2 more Walter Clayton threes in order to pull ahead, right? If we make those free throws,
you demoralize them a bit when you sink that first free throw.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have to wait. For the second one because game's slowing down. There's no momentum, right? But you miss it. You miss it. They get the rebound, and then they're running back down to the court. Like it's like. Yeah, man, it's tough.
Toppin 0 for 5 from free throws. 0 for 5. That's just can't have it happen. I mean, it simply can't happen. Darren Williams, right? He also the one that missed the front end of the 1-on-1. He just huge, and this is not a bad free throw shooting team. That's what sucks about it too. Is that we've had our problems with free throws over the course of the years. We made a joke earlier this season about how that's not really been a problem with this team, and sure enough.
It became the problem.
At the worst possible time, it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. For me, man, I'll say like my man Charles Barkley said it. The better team did not win. I agree. I do agree. And, a lot of people, and I'm so, oh, God. I wish that one of the main reasons I wish we won was so that we could knock out back-to-back SEC teams because in the Arkansas – broadcast, they glazed them all game. In the Florida, they blazed them the whole game. And SEC was a great conference, blah, blah, blah. But this, like, the thing that sucks most about some of this tournament stuff is like, I never feel like the commentary is very just unbiased. It's very like, let's love the game for the game. It's always like, let's find, like you said, in the Arkansas game, let's find one thing to really hone in on and just talk about that ad nauseum. I'm like, commentary has gotten so lazy. So sports broadcasting has gotten so lazy, and I don't know what it is. If it's like this, we can't find younger voices to come in and like make it dynamic, or it's just we're entrenched in these ways. But the glaze is on for the SEC, and so that was tough. But
so real quick, I think one thing to that, and I want to give a shout out to our boy Scott Wildcat, because it's something that he's been very big on, which is, and I see him make these rants, which I always find hilarious because Scott gets very passionate about this. But he talks about how college athletics in general is missing people that just like the sport. Right. So when it comes to the NCAA tournament, right, you have 68 teams that are going to be in this NCAA tournament. Charles Barkley ain't watching games by all 68 of these teams. Kenny Smith's not watching. And even Clark Kellogg, and I like Clark Kellogg, he's a good guy, but he's not watching all of these teams also. So what ends up happening is what they do is that, maybe before the game, they read an excerpt about the team, or maybe they just kind of read a little bit up on them, right? If let's UNC Wilmington, right? They probably hadn't watched one game of UNC Wilmington all year. So they say, hey, you tell me about UNC Wilmington, and I'll reiterate it on this. And if I can find a narrative that I can stick to it without actually watching it, cool, right? And so I think that's where a lot of that relates to, right? And so it's one of the reasons why I think college basketball fans love Fran Fraschilla, because Fran Fraschilla can tell you everything you want to know about UNC Wilmington. And you're like, well, how the hell do you know all this about UNC Wilmington? Because he loves the sport. He legitimately loves the sport. So he's not coming from a narrative. He's not coming from any of that. Because he loves the sport, he's going to talk to it, like you mentioned, ad nauseum about everything about it, because he's truly passionate and loves the sport. He doesn't love the narratives of it. He is not here for clicks and all those. He just wants to talk about the sport at hand, not for like a first take segment.
And it kind of reminds me, makes me think of like Tony Romo. If you ever had the joy like listening to when Tony Romo was like doing when he was on the telestrator or whatever, guy would just call it, this is how the play's going to go. He this, that, and then it would go exactly as I'm like, that is a you can't teach that kind of thing. Like that is a love, that is a high IQ love. Fran Fraschilla, same thing. Just a total love for the game. Total sponge. Early on in the season is one of the guys who's like, man, Texas Tech team is built. This Texas Tech team is built for the tournament because of this, and this. And nobody else listens. Nobody cares. And Texas Tech fans were used to that. But like as it comes to the tournament as a whole, to the landscape of college athletics as a whole, it's like we are starting to lose. And I'm not saying this is a chalk conversation. I'm saying it more as like a conference prestige conversation. Greg Sankey sucks as an AD for like SEC, because this notion that just because you think your conference is the best at everything, you should have domination over every single facet of postseason, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that you're trying to make it this professional ideology, when really the exciting thing about college sports, especially the March Madness, you take the madness out of it if you start making it just very
it's a competition.
It's making a competition. Let
these we love the
guys. Yes,
and somebody brought up a good point. SEC got 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, and nobody is doubting some of these teams. Like nobody's doubting Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, Georgia, like some of these teams that were in there, right? But let's face it, they did not deserve 14 teams. Texas didn't deserve to make it. Arkansas ended up proving themselves, but honestly, I don't even think Arkansas really deserved to make it, right? Somebody brought up a good point, is that I would, whether right or wrong, I would rather see what the second best team in the West Coast Conference can do than the 14th best team in the SEC. Yes. You had all season to prove that you were a better version of yourself in the SEC tournament. Why would I want to watch the 13th and 14th best team in the SEC in any conference, right? Make it. And I think that's absolutely right. And we're speaking from, like, mind you, it's not like we're speaking from the Pac-12, right? We're speaking from the Big 12. Big 12 has been the best conference in basketball for the better part of the last decade, consistently.
Yeah.
Right. So we're speaking from experience here. The percentage record the SEC broke with the highest percentage of teams to make the NCAA tournament, that was the Big 12 percentage that they broke. Like that's the piece there. And I am saying just as much. At one point, the Big 12 had 10 teams in our conference. I don't want to see all 10 teams in the conference. I didn't want to see all 10 teams in the conference tournament because one team got beat up on, right?
Yeah.
So why would I want to watch the team that kept losing every game, Oklahoma State? Why don't I want to watch Oklahoma State in the NCAA tournament? Everybody in our conference beat up on them. So I don't want to see them move on. I want to see good teams move on. I want to see teams that had the opportunity to prove they were good and decent continue to move on. And I will say this: Arkansas had a great end of the year, so maybe, but like Texas was ridiculous. Texas had no business being in the NCAA tournament. They got in by proxy of the conference of, hey, we're the SEC and we're supposed to be the greatest conference ever, so you should let us in. And that was really what it is. Because I would argue that if Texas was in literally any other conference, they still would have struggled and they still would have made the NCAA tournament. Right. And what you ended up seeing every round that they said, oh, SEC broke the record for the most that made it. There wasn't. SEC didn't upset anybody. Right. The SEC that had the higher seeds that were supposed to win typically won. And that's just like right now they have 2 SEC teams in the Final Four because there was supposed to be 2 SEC teams in the Final Four. Right. When you did the seedings, you said that Florida and Auburn were 2 of the 4 best teams in the country. And I think most people would have agreed with that. And they're the ones that made it to the Final Four. Like that's it. That's it. It's as simple as that. Alabama was one of the top 8. They didn't make it to the Final Four. Right. Like that's the nature of how all this goes. So
cooked.
SEC has had a great season, but I do, it's been a bit much. We saw the better teams from the SEC continue and the worst teams from the SEC not. And that's just simple as that. So yeah.
And that's for every conference. That's not even just exclusive to SEC. It's just like if we put 12 ACC teams in there, most of them are going to flame out. And like that's what the beauty of the March, like this tournament is that we can take the best of like all these conferences and make it an exciting, or like teams that have just crazy performed and make it an exciting. Huh?
No, sorry. I was going to say a great example of what we're talking about is SEC tied the record for most teams from a conference making the Sweet 16, right? They had 7, right? But what was brought up was that the 2 conferences they tied, it was, and I can't remember the years, but it was one of the years the Big East did it, one of the years the ACC did it. Both times the Big East and the ACC did it, 9 teams from their conference made it. It's a much greater feat for 7 of your 9 teams to make it to the Sweet 16 than 7 of your 14. And so that's really the whole thing that we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's a 50% attrition. You force the numbers to make it look good. And like ultimately, what does that do for this? I think another like unintended consequence is that the only people that are excited about that are SEC fans. Literally everyone else is like, obviously, because you've jammed all your teams in there, you're bound to get some kind of positive feedback from that, or positive feedback loop. But it's like, it sucks. And so here we are with the Final Four. And guess what? It's all chalk. And I'm not upset about that because I think Duke's an incredible team. I think Houston's an incredible team. I think Auburn's an incredible team. Out of those 4, I'm like, Florida, you may be in for a little bit of a tough time against Auburn. But like 4 best teams in the country, sure. I guess so. Hoping for an upset, but it happens.
Well, no more upsets now. It's all 1 seed, so it's a.
I mean, at some point in this tournament, I was hoping. Yeah.
No, I mean it happens. It happened. Y'all weren't around for 08 because 08 was similar to this too, right? It happens where sometimes you're going to get chalk madness. I don't think this is a referendum on the sport in the NIL era, like people are trying to make it be. If we start seeing trends of this, right, then maybe if we see all 4 1 seeds next year too, okay, well then maybe we got to have that conversation. But an anomaly is not a trend. Last year we saw a bunch of upsets. The year before we saw it was the year of upsets. And guess what? NIL was around in 2023 as well. So so we'll see what happens there. But at the end of the day, Texas Tech unfortunately does lose thanks to Walter Clayton's heroics. And season's over, unfortunately. So JC Toppin had 20 points, 11 rebounds in that game. Darren Williams, 23 points, 5 rebounds. Chance McMillan with 14 points in that game as well. So, Jeremy, we get to the offseason, and as everybody moves into the transfer portal, nobody from the Red Raiders have announced any transfer portal, and honestly, I don't expect us to. We're gonna pay for almost everybody to come back if they can. There is a ruling, that 5th-year ruling, that's been talked about for the last few years, that's making some Red Raider fans hopeful about certain players like Elijah Hawkins and Kerwin Walton and Chance McMillan, I think, is the one that most people are most excited about to see if maybe he'd come back for another year. I wouldn't hold out hope, but I think the main hope that we're looking at is next year, right? I think our attention, I don't think you're going to hear a lot from Texas Tech when it comes to players we're trying to get in the portal or players leaving the portal, because I think the number one thing we're looking at is, which is a good problem to have, is we got to do whatever it takes, or we got to see what happens with retaining players. Right, we already know Christian Anderson will likely be here next year. I don't see a scenario where he leaves. Right, Kevin Overton will likely be here next year. I don't really see too many scenarios where he leaves. But then you have a situation where JT Toppin and Darren Williams, their names have come up quite a few times in the NBA draft. Do they stay or do they go? Right, I think JT Toppin, when he first came here, the idea was he'd be one and done here at Texas Tech. His stock hasn't necessarily superseded into the first round like it probably should have yet. So what I'm assuming is going to happen is I assume we will see probably both of them enter the draft, and then wait till and we'll see if they come back. That's my assumption. I don't know for sure that's going to happen. That's what I would expect. I would expect both of them to enter the draft, and then we will see whether they come back or not.
Who else did that?
Well, Toppin did it last year. If you remember, Toppin entered the draft and the portal at the same time.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of a Red Raider.
Well, Kevin McCullough did it and came back to Tech, and then he transferred the following year.
And then transferred to – that's right. Somebody else. But, yeah, I think that's reasonable, especially for – I mean, Toppin and Williams. And there was kind of a little tweet going around on Twitter. Yeah, I'm going to say Twitter because Elon's selling it. I think or he's selling it to his own company. Who cares? But that he's flying Lufthansa, and who knows where he's going. Somewhere in Europe, he's going to test out maybe he's just taking a break, buddy. Maybe he's just taking a fucking break. But I think that's you're spot on. Now there are characters kind of down the way you wonder about. Emily Yalaho, like, hey, what's your injury status? Are you somebody who's going to be looking for, like, hey, I'm not going to get a lot of playing time if JT comes back, and maybe I'll go have to, test out the water somewhere else. And, Leon Horner, what's that look like? We've also got that other guy who hasn't played. Can't remember his name because he came in the spring. There's a lot of questions. But you're in a really good spot. And here's another thing. Here's another feather in Coach McCaslin's hat, is that Coach McCaslin has created such a positive culture, aside from one very sour grape, has created such a positive culture that there is a moment of there's a real unity to this team. And Coach McCaslin's talked about it a lot, that this is a team that very much plays for each other, wants to play for each other. And I think a lot of that's going to come into play in a conversation between JT Toppin and Darian Williams. I can see them going to the draft, not really, both of them kind of being like, I don't really like where I'm at. And then maybe they have a conversation with each other of like, what if we do this one more time? And that's not a bad conversation to have, because like you both know that down the stretch you were key for the victories in this team, right? You've got good players kind of coming up. Christian Anderson's gonna be a little older. This whole fifth year thing, I don't put any stock in that, by the way. Like if Chance McMillan leaves, he leaves. That's thank you for your service, man. I'd love for you to come back, but at the same time, do you want to? I don't know. So there's so many variables, but I think as a program, you're in a really nice place where your head coach just took you to the Elite Eight in his second year of being a head coach. Second year.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing for sure. I will say one thing that's beneficial for Toppin and Williams to think about also is that if they do go to the draft, they do find out that they're going to probably be a second-round pick, right? I mean, you'll make more money next year at Tech. That's the beauty of NIL right now is that, right, a second-round pick, if you do make – first of all, a second-round pick is not guaranteed contract, for one. And then two, even if you do get a contract, it is typically for a second rounder, you're making about $1 million. Which I say about $1 million like it's monopoly money. Still life-changing money. But it's $1 million. Texas Tech, some of these star players are getting paid $2 million plus. All right. So with benefits, right? And so that's another thing is that Olivia Miles. Well, now that's the WNBA. It's a little different. But Olivia Miles is saying the same thing of like WNBA draft. Transfer portal me, baby. let's get these checks. So I think that's a benefit, right? I think 5 years ago it would have been a no-brainer that Toppin and Williams were leaving, right? Toppin and Williams were leaving to go make money now, and they can both make likely more money by staying another year. And so, I know we talked about in the chat. I actually think Toppin could benefit from another year, benefit from expanding his range out to the mid-range a little bit more, maybe to the three-point line a little bit more, modeling his game over after maybe a Jabari Smith like he was at Auburn, where he was this defensive savant that could also just drill it from the mid-range and three-pointer, like modeling his game that way, adding a little bit more athleticism to him, and then you have a dangerous and a bad man in JT Toppin. So I can actually see it from JT's side of him coming back. D5, obviously, I don't necessarily see him improving his draft stock. However, you can improve my heart stock by coming back and making me happy. So yeah, definitely exciting times in Red Raider land, and I think the consistent sentiment is Grant McCaslin. He's got us right. So that's a great thing. Mr. Gillen, sorry to. We just got done talking about all like hopefulness for next year and beyond, and how everything is on the up and up for the Red Raiders. As we reflected over that Florida game, I think everybody was sad about how the game ended, but we reflected on the season. I put up a poll on my Twitter account about what we all thought was the second best season in Texas Tech men's basketball history, and almost everybody agreed that it was this past year. I will say, y'all gotta research 1996. Okay, that was a really good year. All right, I don't disagree. Actually, in my reflection, I do think this 2025 season probably is the second greatest year in Red Raider history. But 96 was pretty incredible. Like, y'all need to learn your history a little bit. But from all this, hopeful thinking, time for us to go to the opposite end of the spectrum and talk about the Lady Raider women's basketball team. The not so hopeful. So I believe we talked about Aaliyah Chavez choosing Oklahoma in the last pod. And I don't think anybody was surprised by that. It's kind of unfortunate because I do think if the Lady Raiders were in a much better situation, that Aaliyah would have chosen Tech. She's not, she loves Lubbock. Everything that she did was for her hometown, and I think she would have loved to continue playing in her hometown. It's kind of like now we crapped on Trae Young for the same sentiment, but remember Rayford Young was trying to get his son to Lubbock to Texas Tech, and he said, "Well, Dad, I want to win." Well, now luckily that year was the 2018 season, which was an incredible year. But we also went to the Elite Eight. But up to that point, right, he was valid in what he was saying. Up to that point, Texas Tech wasn't this winning program. And so him saying that Trae Young saying he wanted to win did make sense. And Aaliyah Chavez didn't necessarily say that, but she chose a team that's been in the tournament the last few years in Oklahoma, right? She awkwardly said Boomer, and she's going to Oklahoma. At least she didn't go to Texas, I guess, was what a lot of fans said, but it's unfortunate. So I put out a tweet saying that Gerlich was on the hot seat. But one of the main things I mentioned was how for Gerlich, going into her most important year of her career, she would have senior year Maupin, senior year Shavers, senior year Freelon, and junior year Logan Johnson. Well, Jazz Shavers has entered the portal. Logan Johnson has entered the portal. We're hearing rumors that a couple more ladies may enter the portal too, right? It wouldn't shock me if all four names that I just mentioned are all in the portal, because these ladies, they're in there last year. They want to win. They're tired of losing at Texas Tech. They want to win. Yeah. And this is no slight to Krista Gerlich. I think they all love Krista Gerlich, but they want to win. And I can't be mad at that. You don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel every time. Winning's funner.
Yeah. Simple as that. And Coach Gerlich's tenure, it's just trending in the wrong direction. And I think as a senior, with the skills that you have, with some of the players that she's recruited, and a good recruiter she's been, their probable departure is going to be really difficult going forward, I think, for me, if Coach Gerlich's recruiting, we talked about this kind of in the chat, if Coach Gerlich's recruiting at a high level, bringing them in, developing them, you expect a turnaround. But there has not been any kind of like adjustment. The second year, it was like the second year of her term, we were like, okay, I feel like we're about to hit some stride and we're turning a corner. But since then, it's gone downhill. It's stagnant. Like there is no real, I mean, there's no measurable point that we can look at and say this team is getting a lot better, because what happens is, we conflate the non-conference victories with this team getting better, but when they hit what matters, which is the conference, they fall apart like this. You've got a lot of talent and we've been in some close games this season, but you've just lost. Like you've not found a way to win, and that's not on the players, obviously, because if it was on the players, it would look a lot different in post-game conferences. It would look a lot different with the transfer portal. But it's like there's an error in coaching where we just can't find a way to win at all. And so, yeah, these seniors, last year they get to play in college, surely, and I would bet you'll see some of these names pop up just at other they may pop up in like not Power 4 conferences, but on teams that are good. And they're just like, you know what? I want to go ball out for a team that's going to win, because that's going to give me the best chance to elevate my game, to develop, which is something we've not seen, and get to the next level where I want to go.
Yeah, it's the lack of that development. I was racking, I put it in our group chat, I was racking my brain over what went wrong with Krista Gerlich. Because we had talked about on this pod how, despite the record in the first 2 years, we were seeing program improvements. We were seeing a group of women who trusted the coach, trusted the program, trusted themselves, and they were and we could see the trend. Right, year 3 they made the WNIT. We saw the trend. We talked about how year 4 tournament or bust, and no, God, did they bust? It was terrible. And this year, same thing. And we were talking about. I was trying to rack my brain of what happened. And a lot of it is based on the fact that their defense has sucked for all 5 years. Like they just can't stop a common cold at times. They let teams go on these runs and they can't just seem to stop it. They just kind of let it implode. But I think a lot of it goes to players simply don't get better. Jazz Schaefer has gotten a lot better in her 3 years here. Outside of her, I can't point to a single other player that I see an improvement. Logan Johnson came as a top recruit in the country. And I think she's just as good as she was in high school right now. Like there's been no improvement. Bailey Maupin came as one of the highest rated recruits to come to Texas Tech basketball in 20 years. And she looks the same she did her freshman year. So there's no player improvement whatsoever. Right. Yeah. And maybe some of that is to the fact that Gerlich's so close with all of her players. Maybe she's a little too buddy, but I don't know. I can't speak to any of that. But all I do know is what I'm seeing on the court, which is nobody's getting any better. So that's not leading to these victories. Right. And so it's tough. And so some people are pointing to maybe we should have fired Gerlich already. And obviously we weren't going to do that. But the most important year of her career is off to a pretty terrible and abysmal start already. And it's very little hope for that Lady Raider basketball program right now. I think we're in for another rough year. And if Maupin goes into the portal, then I'm just going to sit in the back and say like, you know what, Lady Raider basketball for the 2025-2026 season is on a hiatus for at least 1 year until we get a new coach in.
Well, and something that we, kind of discussed was in this era, the NIL, it's like, okay, you lose some players. Well, there's plenty of players who are looking to make a bag and come play at a program, but it's like, I don't know if we have any kind of reputation at all to say, hey, we're having a down year, but we want you to come in and elevate this program. It's more like, I don't know if I would take any amount of money to go play at Texas Tech, because I know that I'm likely just going to lose, right? Because it's just like, I don't know if we have any kind of rep at all anymore, right? Even with the best facilities in the country, there's only so much you can encourage. Like if you have the worst program in the conference, it's like, well, I don't know, And so
Yeah.
we're in a really where the men's program is really like we're feeling great. Even in the offseason, it's like, you know what? I'm excited to see what Coach McCaslin does. Trust him fully. Let's see how this team shapes up for what can be a really exciting next year. On the other end, man, please don't be a scandal or something. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
the bare minimum.
I mean, that's where we're at with that program. It's pretty. I didn't think it was possible. I really didn't think it was possible to be further down than we were when Candy Whitaker was the head coach. I didn't think that was possible. I thought that was the lowest point in Lady Raider basketball history. And yeah, I thought that was as bad as it could possibly get. We're close, is all I'll say. We're not far off from Candy Whitaker's tenure. And that's saying something, right? The only thing that Krista Gerlich is missing is that she's at least won 10 games in every one of her seasons. Like that's yay, I guess. I don't know, but it's the end of the season was really a great showing, but now that you're losing two of your four best players for next year, that's just it's not like you're back to square one. You might be losing more. I know we've already thrown our hat in the ring when it comes to transfer portal. We were already trying to get ladies, but it's looking grim already. I will say this: there is a blueprint to it. In two ways, we've seen it. We've seen one at Texas Tech in a different sport, and one in the same sport with a local team. Right? The Texas Tech softball team did it, and the TCU women's basketball team did it. We saw it where they took TCU. So I'll start off TCU women's basketball. TCU women's basketball, where they were the worst team in the Big 12, the worst team in the Big 12, and they said, "We're going to get a new coach. We are going to use this NIL money, and for the next 2 years, we are going to spend it. We're going to go out of the portal. We're going to get some of the best players in the portal. We'll even get a woman beater if we have to. And we will get some of the best players that we can possibly get." And in 2 years, they went from the worst team in the Big 12 to Big 12 champions and a number 2 seed in the tournament. That's all it took, right? But all that started with a new coach. Flip side, Texas Tech softball. So what really started this was that our coach that looked to be on the up and up spurned us for an assistant coaching job. And we said, we are not going to let that happen again. We ain't let that happen again. We thought we were on the rise. You know what? We're going to expedite this rise. We're going to go out and get the best or the best, I don't even think he was really available. We said we are going to make him available at Louisiana Lafayette, pay him whatever he wants, pay his wife whatever she wants, bring her over to Lubbock. And then who is the best player in college softball? Oh, the pitcher hitter out in Stanford, go get her. Go get her and go and surround her with talent. And just like that, Texas Tech softball is now the best team in the Big 12, right? And same thing, 2 years. Or actually, that one was a year, right? Going from an average to below average team to the top of the conference, right? TCU, the worst team in the conference, to the top of the conference in 2 years. So we've seen the blueprint in two scenarios. So the blueprint's there, but both of them, unfortunately, Krista, started with the new coach.
Yeah, correct. I was hoping to get there. It's like, yeah. And so Hokut seems to see it similarly. He made a really interesting. I was reading over the transcript again. He made a really interesting comparison. This article from the Avalanche says, in discussing Gerlich's status with the university, Hokut said he and Gerlich, know there's got to be some changes. Duh. While he didn't have specifics in mind, he likened her situation to the one Texas Tech football coach Joey McGuire had at the end of the 24 season. At the end of the football season, this is a quote, Coach McGuire sat down and evaluated, said Hokut, who added, he challenges all his head coaches to self-evaluate at the end of their respective seasons. What had to change within the football program for us to get to Arlington and to be able to meet those goals? Coach Gerlich has got to do the same thing. Well,
Joey McGuire was one game away from the Big 12 championship game. Krista Gerlich had to pray to get into the 3rd/4th best post-conference tournament in women's basketball.
Yeah, I don't think they're similar. I don't think they're similar at all.
But you know who is similar to Krista Gerlich, Jeremy? Do you know who is? There's a guy. So I want you to imagine this. I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. If I was telling you that we have a coach, used to be a Red Raider great, right? So they used to play for the university, used to win a lot of games for the university, all that stuff, right? And this coach is a really good offensive coach, has a really close relationship with their players, right? However, really sucks at developing talent and really sucks at defense, right? Coaching defense, right? Who am I talking about?
Darvin Ham.
In college, who am I talking about?
Just
You're
joking.
not wrong. You're actually not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong, actually.
We're talking about the one and only Mr. Dreamy, Cliff Kingsbury.
Krista Gurlish is Cliff Kingsbury. Right?
She is.
And actually, to add to that, both of them gave us hope early on.
Yeah.
And now when crashing and burning, we probably kept them longer than we should have. It's the same person, same coach. Hopefully that doesn't mean that we're about to hire Matt Wells, but it is the same coach. And so, that realization was like, well, this is really just like Kingsbury's last year. This is really about to feel like a lame duck year for Krista Gurlish. And I think didn't Kingsbury spend 6 years at Tech? Yeah. So, so yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I don't.
It's a small world after all.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see a scenario where that this is going to happen in our favor. We just lost the best player, and Aaliyah Chavez. I'm going to be in a retirement home by the time I see another Aaliyah Chavez type talent come out of Lubbock, Texas, on the women's basketball side. That just doesn't happen. Like Houston has not had an Aaliyah Chavez. That's how good she is. Right. And so actually, no, I take that back. Shout out to Neko Gumake. She is from the Houston area. So that's all right. And Brittany Griner is too. So let me rephrase. But you know who hasn't had an Aaliyah Chavez? Dallas. Dallas not had an Aaliyah Chavez. So yeah. So it's tough. You lose out on that. We're a losing program mostly because of it. And it's just I can't see it happen. I will say, if you are a huge fan of the women's basketball team, this next coming year, take a look at the UTSA Roadrunners. That's all I'm going to say there.
One to consider.
One to consider if you want to know where my mind's at with who might be able to replace Krista Gurlish. Just watch UTSA. And so yeah. On a related note, A&M almost hired a Longhorn. Beard actually stayed. He stayed at Ole Miss.
Did he really? When did that get announced?
He did, like before we recorded, but he actually he's staying at Ole Miss. Maybe he's learning his lessons. That loyalty is actually important. I thought for sure he was gone, to be honest.
Running from your issue. Well, that's what everybody was saying. There were people that were like, heard the deal was done, blah blah blah. Yeah. Or maybe they were can we just be honest? Background check real quick. He's like, you know what? I'm staying where I'm at, guys. Thanks.
At Texas A&M.
State requirements.
No, I will say I thought it was more likely to happen just because, and not even so. This is what I'll say about Chris Beard, right? So Chris Beard typically does. Obviously, he doesn't really have loyalty. Who he's loyal to is himself and his coaches. I give him this credit. Chris Beard does a lot of times make decisions with his squad, his Adam Sandler squad in mind, with the exception of Mark Adams, who he kind of screwed over when it came to Texas Tech. But he does a lot of the times do it with his staff in mind. And so I was of the belief that he would take the A&M job to get a lot of his staff back to Texas, right? He'd be able to bring Rodney Terry back on staff. And I did think that there was a good chance that he was going to take that. And also, I mean, he's from, he has a lot of family in North Houston. I think I even heard a rumor that his mom is in like hospice care in the Woodlands. I don't know how.
Yeah, the Woodlands.
But the Woodlands to Brenham is like an hour away. Like that's nothing. So I thought it was less about, like, I heard some people saying, well, why would he turn down Arkansas to go to A&M? It's not about how good or bad the program is. I thought he was going to do it just because he wanted to get back in Texas. But instead, he pulled a good old Mike Gundy playbook, which is threaten to leave the school, and the school will keep giving you raises. So,
that's right. That's right.
So
Whatever, man. I was kind of excited to watch the Chris Beard legacy continue to grow. A legend, I should say. I don't know if that legacy. He didn't leave him much
where he
legacy.
goes to every Texas school.
Yeah. Next to be, after A&M, it's gonna be Rice.
Yeah, that's right.
After Kelvin Sampson retires, and they have their like, hey, let's make his son coach, and he sucks. Then it's like, you know what? There's a guy Rice, little known, Chris Beard, record of winning. Let's bring that guy. He comes to Houston, and then Houston never beats Texas Tech again.
Oh, I can't wait for Kelvin Sampson to take over. I can't wait. I can't wait. And Coug fans don't even know what they're in for. They're like, yeah, he's going to be great. He's been learning under his dad. He'll be awesome. Hey. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
All right.
But anyways, so that's it for basketball. We are going to pivot a little bit over to stickball here pretty soon, and mostly softball because the guys, the baseball team, they make my head hurt. We're current. I saw somebody say, "Are we having another Dan Spencer year?" And we're way past the Dan Spencer year. Dan Spencer still had a winning record. Like Dan Spencer was actually 8 games over 500 in the lone year he was a coach. Like that was actually, not a. I'll take that. I'll take the Spencer year. Right. What I don't want to have happen is what's happening right now, which is at one point in time, it looked like Texas Tech was in for one of the worst years in one of the worst years in Texas Tech baseball history. That's what I didn't want to have happen. That's what it was looking like. And it still is kind of looking that way. I think we just got a benefit of the schedule more than anything. But yeah, so we'll see about softball, we'll see about baseball, but softball, best team in the conference, baby.
To the tournament we go.
And you're not even joking. That's the crazy part.
No, I'm not joking. I said it before this season even started.
We're exceeding expectations in softball, which is crazy because expectations were already wildly high.
Yeah, that's facts. So excited to have an episode over it. We can kind of go over some of the big victories so far for the team and kind of just hopeful projections of how it's going to end up because we're coming towards the end of the season. Like we're sweet spots coming up here. Down the stretch, got a lot of exciting games coming up. It's gonna be fun to talk about and fun to see a player like Naturi Kennedy continue to do what she's good at. That's being the best pitcher in the nation. Literally has not skipped a beat since she came over from Stanford. That's how you know she's for real.
Do you think she can play baseball?
Not in this administration, but if she was around, a couple years ago, we could have made it happen.
Yeah, for sure. In case you were wondering, Texas Tech got swept by Kansas State in baseball, lost their series before that to TCU as well, and is in process. They're playing 10th ranked Oklahoma, or they played 10th ranked Oklahoma on Tuesday, lost that game, and then now we have a series against Cincinnati. I'm not holding my hopes up. Truly en route to one of the worst seasons in Texas Tech baseball history. So that's fun. Jeremy, anything else you want to say to people?
It's bad when ain't nobody tweeting about it. Nobody's tweeting about baseball. So, yeah.
Well, it's bad when I put that list and ranked all the programs at Texas Tech. Lady Raiders were not. The women's basketball team was not last. Baseball was.
Yeah,
that's where we currently are right now. Pretty sad, to say the least. So yeah. Only other thing I got is if we kind of switch attention to football a little bit, all right? So obviously we all know that Taj Brooks, who lost a lot of weight, everybody's loving his film. I'm seeing his he could go as high as a day 2 pick, right, in the 3rd round. I don't see him going past the 5th, but he's really volatile. Somewhere between that 3rd to 5th round range, I think is where we're going to see Taj Brooks. But a couple interesting things. Caleb Rogers. Had so NFL teams do these top 30 visits where they kind of make some of their 30 prospects they want to look at. right? And that can range between rounds 1 and round 7 of some prospects that just want to do like an individual meeting with a training session, just kind of get a look at it. Caleb Rogers had one of those visits with the Dallas Cowboys. And Jalen Conyers had one of those visits with the San Francisco 49ers. So both of them getting some look-sees as you go. And this is the month of the draft. Dreams come true this month. Let me tell you something. I would rather my dream not come true in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But hey, as long as your dream can come true in general, then you'll take it.
Yeah, better than most.
Yeah, better than most indeed. For the people champ that is Jeremy Gillen, this is your boy, Albie Shore, and you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 Network. As always, stay wrecked, people.